Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino. Our guest today is Dr. Felicia Ferrara. Dr. Ferrara is an international speaker, author, and psychologist. She consults with agencies and individuals on building positive relationships both at home and at work. Dr. Ferrara's former work included crisis resolution, trauma adjustment, and maximizing potential in all levels of career and leadership. As a consultant to state and private organizations, she has spoken on many aspects of adjustment, motivation, and pushing through adversities. One. Dr. Ferrara, welcome to the show and thank you for being on Business Notes today.
Well, thank you, Diane. Thank you for having me.
So, what drew you to the profession of psychology and the different phases around that work?
Well, I was always wondering why people did what they did. I would, even as a young child, 9, 10 years old, I would watch people and they do things and I'm thinking, what are they thinking? Why did they do that? So I guess it kind of carried with me. And I was a late starter because I was married and had my children first. And so I didn't go start college till about 23. And only because a local person encouraged me to do it. I hadn't been driven or motivated that way, but somebody saw something in me and I'm thinking to myself, what are they talking about? Why should I keep going? And so I did. And I thought, okay, I'll do 2 years. I did it part-time. And then the dean called me in the last day of school. She said, okay, where are you going from here? And I said, well, I have my associate's degree. I guess I'm all set. And she said, oh, no, you've got to keep going. So I'm driving home and I'm thinking, what is she talking about? Where am I going? And so that thought just kind of stayed with me. And I ended up enrolling in the 4-year college. And that was overwhelming to me as a young person because the campus was so big and it's nothing I was used to. So, but I did it part-time when the kids were small, 2 nights a week. And that took me 10 years to do my bachelor's. So talk about the delayed effect, right? But, I actually wanted to do creative writing. And then I thought, well, you can't make a living at that. I better go into, something more substantial. And the psychology was always there. I was always wondering about people. And I had some fantastic professors who kind of made it come alive for me.
And so, but then you went back and you obviously got a master's and a PhD. What was the catalyst for you to go back to school after that?
Well, the truth is, with a bachelor's in psychology, you really don't get employed, so you need your graduate degree. I went the first time in Connecticut. I did a educational specialist degree and became licensed as a school psychologist. And then when I moved to Florida, at that point, I was no longer married, so I ended up going back and enrolling back in school. And I had 2 kids in college at the time, so there were 3 of us in college. It was really crazy. And so I went back in for, believe it or not, research because I couldn't grasp why people were doing things. I wanted to understand it better. And I ended up in advanced statistics and research degrees with the cognate and industrial and forensic psychology. So yeah, I kept going. and now in life, I'm just enjoying things now later in my life now, but it led to, I loved my career. My biggest kudo is when I was teaching in different colleges and I was a associate professor at a graduate school and taught others. But what I love is when I have people change their major because of something, my enthusiasm. And I've had kids tell me that, students tell me that, doc, you made me change my major. Now I got to start and do a few more courses. I said, well, you're going to love it because it's so vast an area of psychology. There's so many areas you can go to,
Right. You're right. And that is rewarding. What do you enjoy most about your work?
I love when you can move people from maybe an immobilized place when they're just kind of stuck, with their own worries, but you show them some light and you can see them progress. And it could be something minor. It could be just their self-perception, or it could be actually motivated to go do something else. So I consider the people who dropped those comments to me when I was younger were my catalyst. They were my little angels that moved me along to the next lane. And I'd like to do that for other people. But I mean, something as simple. One time I was interviewing a young juvenile. He was in the detention center, and I was interviewing him, and he just had his shoulders down, and he was so down, and he had an odd name. And I said, "Gee, where's your name from? Where's your dad from?" "Oh, we're Indians. We're just bums." And I said, "What?" I said, "Why would you say that?" I said, "What do you mean Indians? American Indian?" And I said, well, his dad apparently had a drinking problem, but it kind of colored his idea of what all American Indians were. And fortunately, I had just come back from a trip to Sedona and did a Mecca kind of a journey with shamans and all. And I said, "Oh my God, no." I said, "You've got to learn about yourself. You've got to go to the library and understand that American Indians have so much wisdom." And I have to tell you, in talking to him, his little shoulders just picked up. I mean, just by something like that. And it's sad that kids' dreams are crushed, by some misperception. So that's what makes me love it.
Well, your work today consists mostly of working with relationships and marriages and things of
Right.
that nature, right? What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes people make when they get into a conflict and things tend to escalate?
And that's an issue that leads to so many of these problems. Once a person is so-called ignited, emotionally upset and angry, the logic goes right out the window. So they stop thinking patiently. And I try to tell people, there's certain circumstances you just don't argue or nag or confront the person. One, of course, is when they're really angry because it's only going to escalate. Two is when they're under the substances, of course, because that's never gonna resolve itself while they're high. And then the third is definitely when there's a mental illness that you know about. Don't poke the bear, so to speak. And then 9 out of 10 times, if you wait until everybody's in a calmer mood, you can come to a better resolution. But unfortunately, sometimes two people are in a bad mood at the same time, and that's where the worst of it happens.
Would you recommend that people come to see someone like you before they get married?
Well, absolutely. I so believe in premarital counseling because of the work I've done. Like, I work with people with disabilities, cognitive disabilities, physical disabilities. For instance, if one of the partners moves slower, their mind doesn't work as fast as the other person starts nagging and yelling, and that just makes the first person more anxious because you're tripping over your disabilities. But that other person who's getting angry doesn't realize they can't help it. It's their physical makeup. You have to give patience for that person to process what you just told them. But it's just understanding what that disability entails or what that mode of thinking entails. If you can understand each other, you definitely have a better mutual understanding.
Right. That happens both at home and at work. And do you still go into work settings and help with conflict there?
Yes, yes. And I've had some work settings, it's conflict resolution where a disaster has happened, like, for instance, a shooting, a bank robbery. In one case, a person got severely injured, fell like 100 feet from a cable installation of training. And all the other people in the class now became afraid to go further. So the trauma, especially in the shooting, the trauma that does for the remaining people that witnessed it, it opens up all their past traumas. So the workday is shot, needless to say. Buildings usually close down after an event. And then the poor workers have to try to resolve that and go back into that same place. Maybe they hid under the desk for an hour or so while the shooter was rampaging. And so the fear is real, and helping dispel some of that fear is important. But yeah, one wound opens up a whole nother wound. And so it's just a domino effect. Yeah.
All right. And do you still do some work in forensics?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I confer to the court all the time. And it's gotten more complicated over the years, going deeper. And I've worked on cases where it's either side, like self-defense for the individual defendant. There's a thing called mitigation, which is complicated. When they go to sentencing, sometimes there's ramifications in the case that a judge will consider if they're aware of it. So we sometimes do a really big, in-depth psychological evaluation of individuals in court, forensics. So, but you'd be surprised how many of that is related to their interaction and ability to interact with their loved ones. I mean, that's what leads to it's domestic violence incidences in court. Unfortunately, sometimes manslaughter or homicide, and those are things that are done in the heat of the moment, like like the book says, in the heat of the moment, and that's when those bad things happen, really bad.
Mm-hmm. And you have a newsletter, right? Can people sign up for that?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I do have a newsletter. It's on building relationships. It's focused mostly on enhancing harmony and romance between the couple. And anyone who's been married a while knows you have to work on it. It doesn't just magically appear. And you have to sustain that beautiful romanticism you have in the beginning, you need to work on it. And so just being nice to each other, a little mutual respect and thoughtfulness helps.
And where do they go to sign up for that?
My website, and that's FeliciaFerrara.com. And down towards the end of the page, there's a sign up link, and you can, and then you will receive a copy of the newsletter in your email.
Okay. And if people want to work with you, Felicia, would they email you or go to that site?
Yes, they can email me at Felicia@FeliciaFerrara.com.
Okay, great. What parting words of wisdom would you leave with our audience today?
Oh my gosh, I would definitely say if there's a heated debate going on between you and your important significant other, by all means, don't do it when you're both angry because it's neither one of you are going to be thinking logically. And getting a third party objective comment or interjection, man, it helps a lot. And I've had couples tell me they wouldn't still be married if I hadn't told them a certain thing at a certain time or we hadn't crossed each other's paths. And sometimes I have second generation where the son has the same problem the father had. So I have had those conferences too, and it's just important to remember how to argue. Nobody teaches you how to confront or how to argue. Everybody goes across the whole spectrum. Some people are so shy they can't argue, they become victimized more, and others are so assertive they can't shut up, so they end up, instigating a problem. But in the end, neither party's happy because now the whole thing got mushroomed into a third problem. So,
Right.
yeah, we try to put that out there, but it's hard for people who haven't been around these terms or understanding any of this. They don't teach you this in school.
Mm. Well, I appreciate your sage advice today, and I appreciate your time being on the show. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, Diane. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Dr. Felicia Ferrara, international speaker, author, and psychologist. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.